Thank you so much. Very happy to be here. Just want to check that I'm being heard right now. Beautiful. Okay, let's do that. Bingo. Great. All right, let's get right to it. So this is an exploration, and we are exploring the sound of yoga, a study of sound and divine vibration in yogic practices. A little bit about why we're on this topic, and basically this topic is an amalgamation of who I am, really. It's my background, raised in a Lutheran church. My father is a director of worship and music. My mother is a pianist and a music teacher as well. And music is just a part of me, and as is that spirituality. I started playing guitar, started playing in bands, and started making records, and wanted to learn how that works, and started to get into recording technology. And that became a big part of my life at a certain section of it. And then began a BA in music. At that point, I was falling in love with yoga. Yoga was falling in love with me. And at that point, I was thinking of heading into ethnomusicology and stumbled on this program, and it kept tugging on me. So I wound up here. And as I wound up here, I started to see how these two great passions, music and yoga, were actually starting to come together because of what I was reading in these beautiful texts about this all permeating vibration that existed before the universe. And as I also arrived here in LA, sound healing, sound baths, and different modalities of all kinds became to be on my radar, and how they were in these spiritual communities and how they were working with vibration and frequency. And this all interested me greatly, and that's why we landed here. So this overview will explain the entirety of my thesis, really, in a nutshell. And what I go over in the entire thesis is these 6 points. What I'll zoom in on is a few of the key points, and then we'll do questions. So what is sound? Just the basics of vibration and frequency. What is sound healing? The overview of these modalities. There are many. There are so many that I focused on sound baths and binaural beats, mainly because those are the ones that deal in frequency a lot more in a more accessible way to, especially in the research that I was able to find. And then digging into the texts. Those texts being the Rig Veda, the Upanishads, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, the Yoga Upanishads, the Hatha texts and treatises. And as I said before, there is this notion of this vibration between all things. And then in those texts, going chronologically, there's this relationship and this interaction with that vibration that starts to change in just different ways, different nuances through those texts. And they land in a place of this practice, not a yoga. It's a lesser known practice, very much held together in different parts of the world. Here in Los Angeles, there are a few people, but mainly in India, there's a school called the Nada Yoga School. And I had an opportunity to attend a 4-day, 1 hour a day, or no, 2 hour a day conference that was streamed on Zoom, and learned a lot. And that's basically the practice relating with that vibration in meditation practices, in silence and listening for that vibration, and also with music. Nada yoga is very much embedded in raga music, and a lot of that theory about vibration with that music. And then the 5th point, the study of Vak, Om, Shabda Brahman, and Nada Brahman, which essentially are all different terminologies for that permeating vibration that I spoke of earlier. And the treatment of it changes in these ancient texts. And then at the end, I come in to look at it in a way of, okay, now that we know that about yoga philosophy, how does this mix with what's going on in sound healing, this work with vibration? And if that's the case, how does that apply? What does yoga philosophy say about what's happening in these sound healing spaces where people are having these tremendous experiences in their body and in their life in general, and making it a part of their life? So my thesis, my main points are as follows. what yoga philosophy says about sacred sound, and sonic spiritual technology tells us why sound is such a transformational force in sound healing modalities. Sound bath practitioners, as well as participants, would be wise to learn and incorporate many practices from Nada Yoga, and this will deepen and expand the effects and benefits of these sound bath practices. And just speaking generally, if we all adopt a mindset where we're communing with divine vibration and interact with it through listening practices described here in these texts, we can open up to new possibilities for expanded consciousness and thereby healing. Just an approach that we all can apply when we're listening to binaural beats ourselves, when we're going to listen to live music more and more these days, I hope, or just turning on music, just that acknowledgement that there's something sacred happening here that I think we all can attest to in our experiences with music that we love. So we're going to get to a couple quick parts of sound so that we can see how it all comes together. Sound is changes in air pressure caused by vibration of matter. Matter itself might just be made of vibrations. If you're a proponent of string theory, that is the case. So that's a whole nother thing that we're not going to get to. Frequency is a measurement of vibration. So a lot of people use the terms interchangeably, but frequency is a measurement of that oscillation of matter, and that's measured in hertz, cycles per second. Harmony is a relationship of those vibrations and frequencies. That harmony, the opposite of harmony is dissonance. That's a clashing or a perceived clashing. It's just perception, really. So this is a drawing I made of overtones. Now, the concept of overtones isn't something that everybody is really keen on. So what I want you to listen to is this sound example. And there's going to be a series of frequencies. The very first frequency you hear is the fundamental frequency. The series of frequencies after it are all the frequencies that accompany it, but are being played simultaneously. But what this sound example does is plays them in a series. So here, I'm hoping this works. Here we go. Okay, I'm hearing that worked. All right. So if we were to take that idea of overtones and apply that to the concept of Vak, Om, Shabda Brahman, Nada Brahman, that divine vibration between all things, and if it works the same way as frequencies do in our world, then that's going to explain a lot of the ways that these sound healing, modern sound healing places, that's why so much healing is coming from those spaces. So again, divine vibration, these four terms. Shabda Brahman, if you'll go down a couple here, is known as the primordial vibration. Sound Brahman being the absolute consciousness. Shabda is the sound of that. And then Nada Brahman is the earthly plane, that which also contains divinity because divinity itself is in that vibration. Those two terms start to get used interchangeably as time goes on, and it gets very, very murky as to where we're at. It's a subject of debate in that kind of world, and it's kind of a niche place in yoga philosophy, but there is a distinction there that Shabda Brahman is that primordial vibration, Nada Brahman coming from the earthly plane, that we make music, we play a guitar, we play a violin, and are participating with that. Okay, so I'm going to go into binaural beats later. Sound baths, perhaps some of us have been to them. There are singing bowls, crystal bowls, all generating these loud frequencies and are said to align and attune the various vibrations in the participants' bodies, the thoughts, the chakra system. And many benefits are reported. The actual research and studies it's very difficult to get some really concrete things. There's just some very promising and positive and ongoing research done on sound baths and binaural beats. More research is done on the binaural beats because that's a more attainable process in that research. But essentially, they're able to measure that there is significant change to brainwave patterns, able to get into a rest and digest state to activate parasympathetic activity. And I'd like to play with the notion that these are all indicators of low-grade samadhi. So if we are playing in this area of we're getting to a state of this relaxed place, that we are opening up into finding a meditative opening in the body, why not see if we can incorporate these practices to go even further, for a deeper healing, for expanded places of consciousness. And that's what I believe Nada Yoga teaches us. So here's what one of the studies found is that in binaural beats, they're able to, there's a consistent method to alter functional brain activity. And then here we have a quote from one of the Hatha Yoga texts. When the yogi is absorbed in the nada, the external world falls away and bliss arrives. So in that in-between space, perhaps there are opportunities where we can, this incorporation of what we've learned here in yoga philosophy we can get there. And people that participate in sound healing can get there. And that's kind of what I'm getting at in this slide. And the way that we arrive there, learning from Nada Yoga, and this was our teacher in the class, Yogacharya Bhuwan Chandra, his quote for what Nada Yoga was attaining samadhi or cosmic consciousness through sound is Nada Yoga, healing through sound. So this is a sacred practice, just treating sound baths and any sort of sound healing modality is that you're interacting with the divine. Just that orientation alone can have a profound effect on somebody. Music is definitely a part of this, and approaching music that you're listening to or playing, that this is also a sacred practice. And that orientation around Nada Brahman, as I spoke to, is key. So opening up the body before sound healing begins. There's a lot of sound baths that I attended, and I'm not going to speak on every sound bath in the country. It's a lot of just, here comes the group, we'll do a little bit of grounding, and then it's kind of lie down and the sound kind of happens to you. I'm suggesting that there's more of an interaction here that is possible to open up the body with breath work, with some meditation practices, some chant, and then go into a place where there's more of a receiving element. And in this conference, this Nada Yoga conference, it was very much, he gave out a very long and layered process before there would be singing bowls or gongs involved. And that this is a dedicated practice is also that people participating in these sound healings were doing breath work on their own. They were doing listening meditations on their own. And in this listening meditation, the silent meditation, you're plucking the Nada Brahman from the cosmos, this practice of deeper hearing, known as divine hearing. And then the Gatra Vina. So this is your body is an instrument. So Gatra being body, Vina is a stringed Indian instrument. And that process is chakras, diet, meditation, pranayama, and exercise, so asana, and keeping that entire instrument working so that the vibrations that you're emitting and the vibrations coming in are able to work with each other in a much more harmonious way. Okay, so on the left, it's going to be your left as well, beautiful. This is how binaural beats work. So binaural beats are meant to be piped into your headphones, and how they work is one frequency comes into one ear at a certain frequency, and then a frequency comes into the other ear within about 40 hertz of it. So they're not the same frequency, they're near each other. And what happens is it produces a third frequency that your brain creates it, actually. And that is called the beat. So binaural is the two ears, and the beat is the third one. So what I'm theorizing here is that you have the two frequencies on the left and the right here, and then in the middle is the third beat, the beat frequency. And then over here, that bigger circle, what if you remember overtones, I won't play that just yet, we'll save that in a minute. If that was one of the overtones of divine vibration, as there are so many that would be permeating out of the divine vibration, then perhaps if that harmonized with that third beat, then that would explain this profound healing, profound focus, these deeper places of consciousness that are attainable. And if you were to orient in these practices of Nada Yoga, who's to say what could be possible from that practice? Likewise, over here on the right, you have sound baths. And again, I'll play for you this overtone series so you remember that this first tone that you hear is the actual fundamental frequency. The others are the layers and layers that you wouldn't even perceive. You would just perceive that first one. So here it is again. So if there are that many overtones of the divine vibration that are constantly vibrating, there are frequencies that we're putting out in sound baths, in music halls, when we're practicing with ourselves, that are the possibility of harmonizing with them. So in this drawing, I have a sound bath on the right over here, and all these dots are the many frequencies that are being in communication with each other, in relationship to each other, creating harmonies, creating dissonance. And so if there are these overtones and the possibility of harmonizing with them, that profound healing can come in. And so what does all this say? At the end, this entire universal situation we have here is frequencies and vibrations all permeating everything and all in relationship with each other. So tuning them and tuning our thoughts, tuning our actions, our words, are affecting the other vibrations in the ether. We learn this from physics. We're learning this from yoga philosophy. We're learning it from sound healing. We know this every time we experience music that we love and is dear to our heart, and it's right there for us. So my conclusion is that sound reveals this interconnectivity in all things that goes from this place I'm at right here all the way to the cosmos. So thank you very much.
That was excellent. And I'd like to open with a question asking you to share about your understanding of microtones.
Okay. Let's see. So the microtonal system in raga music. Yeah, so we think of tones. I'm getting like feedback here. We think of in Western terminology, you know, we have the equal temperament. So it's a very linear way to look at, stepwise way to look at pitch relationships. And in raga music, it's not looked at in a stepwise way. It is looked at more in like a spiral. It's looked at more so in color. So there are these places of traveling within melody that aren't in the Western system's way of doing it. And microtonal, yeah. So that's one of my favorite things about raga music is that there's just more nuance than that broken down linear way to look at it.
So other people can go in the chat or okay, so Lori has a question in the chat.
Where is it? Oh, okay. Oh, great. That's awesome. Thank you for asking that, Lori. I've never seen personally. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the question is from Lori, who's sitting right here. In the sound baths, is there any focus on listening to the inner sound, Nadia Ashuddha? And I haven't come across one, and that's exactly what I'm suggesting, is that there's an opportunity to take this from Nada Yoga and apply it to these sound healing modalities. And perhaps there are that I don't know of. I couldn't really find any that were like kind of combining these things. It's really just kind of a, here's a bunch of frequencies and let them do their thing. I would hope that there are, and I haven't come across any, but there may be. Yeah, me. Exactly.
Another question here in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Would binaural beat music be helpful with young students in the classroom?
I would say absolutely. The thing is, for binaural beats to actually work as they're intended, it's to be in headphones, because that's what creates the third beat, is the binaural quality of it. However, there are a lot of, so now there's solfeggio frequencies as well. They are just like these very different frequencies played for a long period of time, and they just have this kind of calming element. So if you look up solfeggio frequencies, those are a nice, those would be a nice option as well. But binaural beats through speakers that aren't in the headphones, they can have that quality too. I'm sure there are many of you out there that put them on when you're studying or sleeping, and like they're awesome. They work.